Hello YouTubers, welcome to the first edition of Cop World. I'm your host, Thron. I was a New York City housing police officer in the 80s and 90s during the crack cocaine era. I want to share my exciting stories that I still have nightmares about. Many of you, when you hear these stories, you will have goosebumps after you heard them. The first story I want to share is about a woman named Sonia. That was her street name. She was a young girl in her 20s. She lived in Long Island. And one day, her friends invited her over to their house to smoke a little crack. And from there, she fell victim to the demon drug and was quickly addicted to it. Within a month, she left her Long Island home and ventured to central Harlem. She was looking for her first fix upon stepping off the MTA, which is the train, and was quickly approached by a man named Big Rob, who was a pimp in the area. She quickly became one of his girls in his stable. He was known to beat his girls if they fell out of line. They tried to steal money from him or drugs. Within a month, she was selling her body for $5 for one hit of crack cocaine. I quickly saw her during a 4 to 12 one summer day and called her over. I knew that she was new to the area, and she was a pretty girl. She was a young Spanish girl with brown hair, long brown hair, milk chocolate looking, and her eyes were beautiful, and she had long eyelashes, and she had a body to match her looks, but I could see that the drug was slowly decomposing her looks. It was taking its toll on her. I called her over and asked her what her name was. She told me her name was Sonia, and she was new to the area, and she was looking just to make a few extra bucks because she couldn't find a job. I knew right away she was lying because I could smell the crack cocaine coming off her breath. And if you've ever smelled that, it's a smell that will never leave the senses of a human being if they've once smelled it, which I have. I gave her a warning, told her, you need to get off the street. If I find you in the area again, I'm going to arrest you. The rest of the night was pretty uneventful. She wasn't in the area. The next shift, I was working and I was called to a possible burglary in the basement boiler room of 3250 Madison Avenue. As I approached the stairwell to the basement, I saw that the door was pried open with probably a crowbar. That's what I was assuming. As I entered the area in the hallway of the basement, I could see two legs that belonged to a woman, obviously, to my recollection, and it appeared that she was sitting on or laying on something metal. As I approached the body, I recognized it was Sonia, and she had been beaten to a bloody pulp. She barely looked like what I remember what she looked like. I mean, her face was basically caved in. And as I looked at the object that I thought she was sitting on, it turned out that it was a rake. It was a garden rake that was inserted in her, inside her vagina. When I spoke to the detectives that handled the case a few days later, they had told me that she was in fact alive when that deviant sexual act was performed on her, and then she was killed. She was beaten first, then sexually assaulted, raped, and then finally killed. But she was alive when they did that horrible act with the rake. And I can't even imagine the excruciating pain that woman felt. 3 days later, the detectives arrested 3 gentlemen. I'll call them gentlemen, but they were perpetrators, and found out they killed her over $3. That was what a human life was worth back in the 80s and 90s. It was extremely violent, and just the craziest times in the streets of Harlem, all over the city, wherever crack was. It was basically a war zone. And I just sat there that night thinking a human being's life is worth $3, and it really hit home, and it bothered me, and it still bothers me to this day. That's one of the stories that I'm going to share with you. There'll be more to come. Until I see you next time, be safe. So long now.